Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, including members of the public, to this extraordinary meeting of the Corporate Services Economic Growth Overview and Scrutiny Committee, today, Wednesday, the 3rd of December 2025. I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is live on the Council's YouTube channel. And before we move into this afternoon's proceedings, there are some housekeeping matters that I'd like to bring to everyone's attention. I'd like to remind members, officers, the press and public that are in attendance today that all mobile phones must be placed in silent mode and no calls should be made or received in the chamber during this meeting. With that, I'll move to the agenda. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies today?
We have no apologies, but we do have a substitution, I believe, Councillor Rolls.
Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda is disclosure of members' interests. Does any member have any interests that they need to declare that have not already been declared to the monitoring officer before this meeting? Okay. Thank you. So it's been a number of years since we've had one of these meetings, and unlike regular scrutiny meetings, they do follow more of a prescribed process. So before we begin, I think it'd be useful to outline how today's meeting will proceed. This procedure has been circulated to all parties, but it will help if I set this out at the outset. If I could add, for those not familiar, that besides myself and my Vice Chair sat at this top table, there are officers who are here just to provide support and guidance to the process, but they are not here as part of the decision-making process. Firstly, I'll set out the purpose of the meeting and any pertinent facts on the procedural background of the matter. I'll also set out powers of this committee and what is within the remit to decide. I'll then move to those members who have exercised the power of call-in and ask that they set out their concerns. They will have 5 minutes to speak. Witnesses in support of the call-in will then be called and they will have 3 minutes each. These are not formal witnesses as such, but just relevant, interested people who I feel can help inform the committee. Members of the committee will then have the opportunity to ask any questions, as will the Cabinet member. Then the Cabinet member will then provide their response to the call-in, again no longer than 5 minutes, and they will have the opportunity to call their witnesses or support members if they wish to. Scrutiny members will then be able to ask questions of the Cabinet member, as will the members who called in the Cabinet decision. Once we've concluded the evidence gathering part of the meeting, it is then for the committee to move into a formal debate, and is at this point that I will invite a motion from the floor. So we now move to item 3 on the agenda. This is a matter where the powers of call-in have been exercised under Section 8 of the Overview and Scrutiny Procedure Rules. The decision subject to the call-in is the decision of the Cabinet made on the 11th of November 2025 in respect of the former fire station in Hexham. The decision is set out in the paper circulated to you, pages 9 to 26, so I will not repeat it. The notice of call-in was received by the proper officer on the 16th of November 2025 and accepted as valid. The call-in notice is in your papers. That sets out the background to this meeting. So now I'll invite the spokesperson for the call-in to address the committee for up to 5 minutes and to call anyone in to support as they wish. So I'm going to ask Councillor Kennedy to speak first, and he has 5 minutes. Councillor Kennedy, I understand you brought a pack with you as you were looking to pass out before. If you want to pass that pack out now, okay, I'll give you a minute or two to pass that out, and then your 5 minutes will start.
Okay, that's very kind. Thank you.
Not enough time to read it, man.
That's why I'm delayed.
Read this.
Are you ready to start, Councillor Kennedy?
Yes, Mr. Chair, yeah.
Okay,
Could you just let me know when you're starting? I'll just take
You've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Right. I've brought a call in, and it's been mentioned that this is the first time in 5 years. It's not my nature to normally bring a call in. I've not known how to do one before. However, I did feel very strongly about how this was brought about within Northumberland County Council. The decision, there had been a long, and I would say a very constructive conversation between myself, other Hexham councillors, Sir Anthony Gormley and his team, and the leader of the council, Glenn Sanderson, and other leading councillors, which had gone on for several months, all positive, that we felt. In the summer of 2025, there was a planning application went in, which we knew nothing about, saying that the council wanted to demolish the fire station, which is where we had been talking with the Gormley team that they were very interested in using as a third site for his works. So this came as a great big shock to us. So, we immediately approached the council that, well, why have you done this when the conversation has been very constructive and we're looking to accommodate somebody as like a man of his nature, Sir Anthony Gormley. It was all sort of brushed over. Oh, sorry, that was a bit of a, we'll work it out. So anyway, conversations then continued, and we thought the conversations were positive, but on the 11th of November, the leader of the council, which I would have liked to have asked as a witness today, but he's decided not to attend, and I've actually written to officers and asking for Glenn Sanderson to be a witness, but he isn't here, pushed this paper through as an extraordinary item to Cabinet, stating that the council didn't have any more time, that they were cutting Sir Anthony Gormley's proposition off. This paper then went to the Cabinet. They decided that in a 9-minute meeting that they decided that there was only one solution, and that was to demolish the fire station and to make it into a council depot, thus stymieing any ideas that Gormley had. So really what I'm trying to get over here is the process of that was very, very, did not follow due procedure. There was no mention of it on the forward plan. There was no, it was well known that was a council, on the council's website, that there was a petition supporting Gormley's request to purchase the fire station and make it into a Gormley centre. So it was cutting across democracy, cutting across the invite of public to develop Northumberland County Council policy. So I don't see why there was an urgency. There was no mention of that. It didn't really consider the reputational risks to this council, which is a significant thing, and a risk that's actually owned by the leader of the council, Glenn Sanderson. And that's why I wanted to actually invite him to be a witness today. Looking at the council paper, I thought it was very thin. It did not have any detail of the options. It does not go into detail on costs, on the cost of demolition, and it very much made it as though there was only two solutions. One solution was the Gormley Centre, which would be an exhibition centre, which would attract tourism to our town, supposedly, and maybe bring about maybe £3 million a year to our town in tourism. Or to demolish the fire station and make it into a depot, remembering that the fire station had been empty for 8 long years. I believe there was something else there. There was a third option, which was to develop the third site, the larger site, next to the current site, and optimise that. So I do think there was those possibilities, and I don't think they were really looked into as well as they should have been.
Time's
And I
almost
would
up,
really
Councillor.
suggest, I've just got to 5 o'clock, to 5, and I really suggest that we look at taking this to full council for a fuller analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
So I'm aware that you have a number of witnesses. I have a list here. I've got Councillor Fairless-Aiken, Councillor Peart, Councillor Dickinson, and Penny Grennan. So who would you like to call first?
I will call Councillor Suzanne Fairless-Aiken.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Suzanne Fairless-Aiken, you have 3 minutes. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I notice many of you here on the committee are newly elected, as was I 4 years ago exactly, at a rather toxic, turbulent time for the council, and the Calla report was called in, and I thought genuinely things would change. I'm disappointed and angry, actually, at this decision. Again, it seems to me that the council is not listening to locally elected members and officers are leading decisions. The processes in this decision have not been transparent, and I believe there are glaring failures as well as deliberate misinformation. I can't decide if it's laziness or, as I say, deliberate obfuscation, and I wish to address some points that might help you make the decision, and some recommendations too. The point about storage was mooted quite a few times, that it was only storage that Gormley was after. That's not true. If the report and the artist's statement from Gormley has been read and circulated, it very much states that it's a public space for exhibitions and galleries that, as Councillor Kennedy says, would possibly bring revenue of the tune of 3 million to Hexham and footfall. The idea that it wasn't ever for sale has been also thrown around. Well, you own a property. It's a fairly moot point that you might be able to sell it. Also, why was the decision paused, the demolition, if not to consider potentially selling it? To me, that kind of defeats the point there. 3, the depot versus art. As Councillor Kennedy alluded to, there's not two decisions here. There's very much a future-proofing of the depot that is at the heart of this. These people are still in porter cabins. The money could be taken and saved from the demolition to build a future-proof, purpose-built depot and maintenance vehicle site for our officers in Hexham. So it was never about that. The current site is very hodgepodge. The split site was never really one of the options, and I know that a lot of the money that has been thrown about that it would cost the council, the 1.5 million and the 250,000 a year, comes from the split site option, which to me is not one. We would like the depot repurposed and revisioned for those officers. The best value term haunts me 4 years on. It's thrown around in every meeting I've ever been in. It's a very narrow vision of value that doesn't consider legacy and heritage. It's all about money. But yet, there was no independent investment assessment done. And we called for that several times in the process, and that was not brought in, and that's government process for investment of this size. Finally, the Fellside offer, which was thrown into the statement that we were meant to be making before this decision, has nothing to do with Gormley, and he's refused it twice. It's a kind of Victorian vision of art in a gilded cage and gilded frame that's not part of his modern
3
vision
minutes,
for
Councillor.
what he wants. I recommend that you take this back to full council with an independent investment assessment and a fitting of the statue in the river as was part of this initial setup. And that's my recommendation. Please do this for the people of Hexham.
Councillor Kennedy, can you knock your microphone off, please? Or could you let me know who's going to speak next?
The microphone.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. We invite Councillor Penny Grennan, Deputy Mayor of Hexham.
Okay. Next speaker, please. 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to start by quoting NCC's own cultural policy. I quote, "Key indicators of success, world-class cultural venues and attractions, a culture-led tourism profile of international standing, confident and entrepreneurial local people leading innovation and growth in the creative industries. Next year, Hexham aims to become the UK's first arts town. NCC supports this, so Anthony Gormley's proposal couldn't have come at a better time. So why has the town mobilised? No notice was given to Hexham Town Council of the demolition order, despite us being a major consultee on all other town planning applications. In response, a photo of 300 people, including our MP, was taken in front of the old fire station. The demolition order was put on hold. There were ongoing talks, site visits and lobbying by Hexham Town Council and the town. Hexham Town Council suggested alternative sites and identified the benefits of Sir Anthony's proposal, not just to Hexham, but regionally. A motion was passed by Hexham Town Council on the 8th of September in support of the Gormley proposal. Hexham Town Council asked for an independent best value assessment. Despite our best efforts, we are not being listened to. So Hexham Town Council's petition went live on the 7th of November. It was announced that day. We chose to use the County Council petition so that, should it reach 50 signatories, it would have to be discussed at the local community partnership meeting. The petition had 3,500 signatories in the first week. Cabinet met one working day after we launched our petition and agreed that the old fire station should be demolished. There was no notice, no papers and no agenda item. The Cabinet has invalidated our petition by the unscheduled decision to demolish the old fire station. That is why we are here today. A week last Sunday, 400 people gathered on the Seal to demonstrate their support for Anthony Gormley's proposal. We have acted democratically throughout this issue, and the town is fully supportive of the Town Council and Gormley's proposal. But there is a solution. The site next to the existing depot is coming up for sale. Its square footage is greater than the old fire station, and the money raised by selling the old fire station would finance its purchase. The decision to demolish the old fire station must be suspended until all options have been considered openly and with us at the table as equal partners. We should not have to trade culture for refuse, and NCC has a responsibility to accommodate both. And finally, I refer you to the Max Keller report. Understanding democratic accountability, scrutiny, openness and documentation needs to run right through every part of the organisation. A unitary council operation requires a real understanding of both strategic overview and local delivery. Thank you.
Thank you. Your next speaker, please, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I will invite Councillor Scott Dickinson, Leader of the Labour Party.
Councillor Dickinson, 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't suppose I'll take up 3 minutes. For me, there's been a wide range of people who've already expressed a whole range of issues and concerns that have happened with this decision. For me, it's very much about the open and transparent nature of the decision-making on this item. For it to be snuck in under an urgent item when we knew as a council the strength of feeling that existed, the petition that had been launched, the talks that had happened with local members and the town council and Gormley himself, the fact that the council and the combined authority have a commitment to cultural events and a cultural north, the fact that we encourage and are supposed to encourage tourism and investment in our communities, that a decision being made and taken out of the hands of local members who were in midst of discussions with the council leadership and others, for it to be done in a way that seems deceitful to the people who have been involved up till now, where notices were published but not shared with those involved, where planning went in without sharing information with those who needed to know, and a whole range of things that the community themselves have done to very much show their anger, not only at the way this decision has been made, but in turn the opportunities for Hexham and Northumberland as a whole that could be missed through investment and cultural opportunities. So for me, it's very much about what is written on the call-in. I signed it on that basis that it seemed to me to be done in an inappropriate way. And my simple request today is that we reflect on that. We reflect on the fact that a call-in has been done for the first time in a lot of years, and that we relook at it so that members of the public, local members, the town council and everybody else can have sufficient information to make representation during that decision-making process, which they should have been able to do in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kennedy?
I shall now invite Councillor Mark Peart, of the leader of the Reform Party.
Thank you. Councillor Peart, 3 minutes.
Afternoon. I supported this call-in because, once again, it looks as though you aren't listening to those councillors and the people. It seems as though we've went straight away to officer-led. You're not considering anything regarding. Now, this is a fantastic opportunity for Hexham, for to progress, for to do something different and to grow what they already have. Now, I just don't understand why the whole situation has arisen and why you haven't listened to your councillors and to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you all for your comments and for the statements made. Now, members of the committee and the Cabinet member have an opportunity to ask any questions of the spokesperson. Just to point out that these are questions only, and I will not allow questions to become either debate or cross-examination. Members of the committee will have the opportunity to debate the matter amongst themselves later in this meeting, and I remind you that this will be a debate in public. So, do we have any questions from the committee? Yes, Councillor Taylor.
My question is for Councillor Kennedy. He said in his address that discussions with the council were ongoing and they were in relation to this building. When did they start and what were the depth of the discussions that were ongoing?
Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you for that. So the length of them probably began 2 or 3 years ago when initial conversations with Sir Anthony Gormley started. Those then matured in say, the last 12 months, where there was Sir Anthony Gormley's team had approached myself and Hexham councillors and the leadership of the County Council. Certainly in an email dated February 2025, Sir Anthony Gormley had written to Councillor Richard Wearmouth and various other councillors stating that that he would like to take forward the fire station, that it would be the third building within Hexham that he would like to take on, and that this one would be the one where it would hold his artefacts, where it would be for an exhibition space, an education space, and all other manners of that, so all related to tourism. So very, very long it's been going on. As I say, I thought our conversations were very constructive. We had all kept them quite internal, but very, very constructive until the explosive measure by the County Council where it said it was going to demolish the fire station, which had stood empty for 8 years. And then things started to get out into the public domain. We tried to work effectively with everybody, and that seemed to continue from that summer until the 11th of November, when the leader of the council decided to take an urgent item to the council's cabinet. It wasn't on the agenda. Nobody knew about it other than the cabinet members, and as I say, I thought that this was incredibly premature, took everybody off guard. Even the Sir Anthony Gormley team didn't know anything about it. And this came as a huge shock and has resulted in the call-in procedure. I hope that answers that question.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Any more questions from scrutiny members? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. My question is about procedure. because I think that's why it's here. Given the 5 things we've got about procedure, that hasn't been followed, I presume. Now it says on here, the 2 chairs of the relevant overview and scrutiny committees were consulted, but didn't consult the committees. Is that a normal course of action?
The procedure for urgency was followed, and it was followed properly, and it was a proper urgency matter. So the urgency procedure was followed as per the Constitution, Councillor, yes.
Well, you see, that's where I've got a problem, because if this has been for sale for 8 years, or empty for 8 years, and we've known about Santhony Gormley's interest all year, really, certainly since the administration was formed in May, why couldn't it have come in front of scrutiny? Because it looks to me as another decision which has had no scrutiny attached. And we are charged by colour, no less, to find some teeth in scrutiny. And that's what this is all about, the way I see it. So it's procedure.
Councillor, I can answer that one. As you should be aware from the Calla report, we don't do pre-scrutiny on Cabinet decisions, and that is what changed some time ago. So Cabinet decisions are not scrutinised before decisions are made, so it wouldn't have come to scrutiny committee before a Cabinet decision is made.
I didn't say pre-scrutiny, Chair. I just said scrutiny. If that's the way you want to take it, then that's fine, but that's possibly up to whatever I propose as a proposal later on in the meeting.
Councillor Dunn.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Gerald, for saying that the urgency procedure was fulfilled. Can you just explain that a bit more? Because that sentence doesn't really make it clear to me what the procedure was.
The Constitution provides circumstances where if a decision is of an urgent nature, it can be taken outside of the normal constitutional timetable, and that's what happened here. And there are steps that have to be taken, and those steps were followed.
Councillor Taylor.
Can I ask Mr Gerard, what was it that made it so urgent for it to be taken out of the normal run-of-the-mill after the building being empty for 8 years?
I suggest that that might be better directed towards the Cabinet members.
Yep. Any more questions either from the committee or from the Cabinet member? No? Okay.
Mark, sorry, Chair, can I address my question to the Cabinet member?
At the appropriate
time.
At the appropriate time.
All right, okay.
Yeah. So we'll now move to the Cabinet member, Councillor Oliver, to provide a response to the call-in. Councillor Oliver, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. We've heard a lot today that I sort of agree with, but we've heard much that I disagree with. This is, I think, in danger of becoming a sort of political matter, and today shouldn't be about politics. It's about doing the right thing for all of the residents of Northumberland and the residents in the Tyne Valley. And I'm just going to sort of clear up a few key points and then pass on to my colleagues, and we'll be happy to take more detailed questions. The first point I'd make is that the building was never for sale. In June 23, I approached the council with a proposal on behalf of somebody else to create a cycling hub. That was soundly rejected. In 24, I made another approach about creating a climbing centre on behalf of a resident in my ward. That was soundly rejected. It was never for sale. In 21-22, there was a £9 million, or I think £8 or £9 million in the capital programme for the redevelopment of that site as an expanded depot. And as a councillor in Hexham, I would expect you to have known that. A development in your town. In this year's budget, there is money in for preparatory works on the Hexham Tyne Mills depot. So the idea that this should be a surprise to anybody, I just find completely unfathomable. There's also been, I think, a very sort of misconstrued perception amongst the public about this whole project. Firstly, on the council's use of the site. People have been told, and I think people have been misled, that we want to park bin wagons on the site. That's not true. We do need to expand our depot. The vehicle maintenance and MOT testing station is at the end of its life. We have a duty to our staff to provide decent working conditions. We have recycling requirements coming next year, and we're running out of capacity. And that serves the whole of the Tyne Valley. That's really important. The other thing is I think there's been a lot of exaggeration about what is actually being proposed on the site by Sir Anthony and his team and the foundation. I think it's been exaggerated. I've heard it described as a world-renowned arts centre, a Gormley artefact education and exhibition centre. The approach was for storage space. And the actual name that the Gormley Foundation itself have given it is the Foundation Storehouse. Now, there has been detailed discussions with the Foundation all along, and since then, temporary, seasonal displays have been offered. And I've seen the emails from a councillor to the Foundation saying you need to do this to secure the site. We've requested additional information. We've had no detail. We don't know the square footage of the exhibition space. We do know that the current site doesn't have space for that. The Foundation have said that. We've had no guarantees, no timescales. In short, we've had no certainty. And what we've been told is it could eventually have some display. Glenn halted the process when the planning application went in, and the planning application wasn't a secret. It was published. Hexham councillors should have known about it. And when the Hexham councillors approached Glenn, he said, we'll pause the process, we'll have an independent officer appraisal done of the different options. 3 months were spent doing that work. We were talking to the Gormley Foundation, who have been told consistently for 2 years that the site is not for sale. Many of you were in the budget meeting this morning, and you heard the context of the times we're operating in. We've got a massive amount of financial uncertainty. Since Thursday, we found out we need to find another £8.5 million in savings next year. This proposal brings £1.5 million of extra capital costs and £250,000 of annual operating costs a year. That's £6.5 million of public money that would have to be spent over the next 20 years. That money has to be found from frontline services. There's also uncertainty as to whether we would get planning permission for a split site operation. We've had an independent architect look at the configuration of the site to tell us whether it would be possible to achieve what we need to do within the existing site with the acquisition of the house, which incidentally has never been for sale until magically very recently. And it's not possible. We've been told there isn't the capacity there. We've demonstrated our wider support for Hexham. We've built a new high school and middle school. We've built new car parking to support traders. This project would put extra pressure on parking, which would damage businesses in the town centre. We've put investment into the Wentworth. We're building an active travel corridor.
5 minutes,
and we've built more parking.
5 minutes.
So thank you, and I'll stop there, but very happy to take questions and clarify some of the misunderstandings.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Now, I understand you have 2 speakers. You have Councillor Mather and Councillor Wearmouth. Who would you like to call first, please? Councillor Mather, you have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. This site has long been reserved for this purpose. It has never been marked for sale because it is essential to the future of the Tyne Mills depot and to the delivery of reliable frontline services across the west of the county. The depot is home to 127 council staff from a range of departments, including our fleet technicians. Our team based at Tyne Mill keep 161 council vehicles on the road and operating safely in every single day. I have seen firsthand the current fleet workshops. It's cramped, deteriorating, no longer weathertight, and is in the near future will become unsafe. Technicians have to work with an insignificant number of maintenance bays for the size of our fleet and the type of vehicles being maintained. These limitations mean they often have to undertake maintenance on vehicles outside in the yard in all weather conditions. That would be unacceptable in any modern workplace. It is essential that we invest in the service to keep public safe, our bins getting emptied and our towns and villages kept clean and well maintained. This is not a luxury item or a nice to have. Without it, we simply will not be able to function properly. It is important to have a fleet team based at the same depot where vehicles and teams operate from so they can respond quickly. Alternatives were assessed, including a split site model. None of them of the same value for money or operator resilience. The fleet workshop manager described the alternative as a logistical nightmare, not only for myself but for all departments trying to get vehicles back and forth between the workshop, and that it would create a massive problem in non-productive time. These views were backed up by the option appraisals which were identified at the West Point site, and more expensive, and how can this be the best interest of the taxpayers? The GMB union has also supported this and recommended the fire station as the best site. The current facility is not the standard our staff deserve. Both myself and this administration value our staff, and without them we would simply have no council. Developing the former fire station site is fundamentally an investment in our staff and the communities they serve. A new 6-bay drive-through workshop will increase maintenance capacity by 50%, reduce downtime and dramatically improve safety. It will provide proper welfare facilities, more efficient layout, a fit-for-purpose stores, and so on. The staff at Tyne strongly support the redevelopment of the fire station site. We want the staff to have a professional, decent working environment. This will help us attract and retain skilled workforce. Some of them we have started as apprentices. Only the use of the former fire station gives us certainty, value for money, and the ability to support our staff properly. And quite frankly, the higher costs of other options cannot be justified. Choosing the former fire station site for the depot is the right decision and the only viable option. It improves safety and strengthens service delivery. Representatives for the best value for public money. Shows a real commitment to our staff who need the improved facility, and most importantly, enables us to continue delivering high quality, value for money, reliable public services that keep our community safe, clean and tidy every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies for that. It was an additional alarm that the monitoring officer had there. It wasn't your 3 minutes, but your 3 minutes are up. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Weymouth. You have 3 minutes, thank you.
3 minutes. Thank you very much, Chair. 3 minutes isn't going to be enough, but I'll try and rattle through as much of this as possible. First of all, I do just want to call out some of the poor language that I've heard in the press about lack of investment in Hexham. What a load of nonsense. 40 million into the high school, middle school, £1 million gym fit out of an already lovely leisure centre, £5 million on a Heritage Action Zone, £30 million flyover of the A69, works on the QE Hospital, 200 spaces of additional car parking space at a cost of 2 million, toilets refurbishment, and the £86,000 every year that we already spend on the existing art centre in Hexham. This administration supports Hexham, lobbies for additional funding where it's not our funding that we're putting in. And for anyone to suggest the opposite is entirely untrue. I'll move on to my next part now. For many months, we've been talking about this decision. Derek, you've attended meetings, briefings, you've had a lot of information. We've considered this over a long period of time, and I hope that anyone isn't left with the impression that anything else has been the case. We've followed the procedures, as you've heard from the monitoring officer. There is no bit of this process that has not been followed correctly. Nick and Mark have covered the bit about the depot. We've been in a position for a long time where we've not been able to commence works on it because we've had to wait for legislation to come through in terms of recycling. We now have that, and the urgency is there in terms of getting on and delivering it. In terms of Sir Anthony Gormley's needs, about a year ago I was contacted about this opportunity. The first sense that you get when you're given some opportunity like this, you think, oh, fantastic, it's going to be like visiting the the Statue of Liberty Museum, there's going to be models, there's going to be this, that. That is not what was presented to us. What was presented, as Nick has described, is a storage space with some limited access by scholars and by academics, with some opportunity. As time has gone on, it has developed to a little bit more about having public access. But it isn't this thing where you're going to have hundreds of people attending, is not what has been presented to us. And Sir Anthony and his foundation have always been very clear and acted with complete integrity and honesty in presenting that. The story seems to get twisted in other places, regrettably, and that's very sad indeed for the people who've engaged with this. So there we are. In terms of the speed of the thing, Glenn is still, even to this day, is trying to continue working with Sir Anthony. We're hopeful that we could find an alternative site for this, something that's closer to the town centre perhaps, and not in the middle of an industrial estate where we would get some significant benefit from it in terms of footfall in the town centre. We did have an agreed statement between ourselves and Sir Anthony, which was unfortunately blocked by the town council and by Derek. That is what it is. We continue to work in the spirit of cooperation in the hope that we can get something that works for everybody on this project. But ultimately, the taxpayer comes first, as Nick and as Mark have outlined very capably. And that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weymouth. So, I'm going to invite questions from the committee to Councillor Oliver, and again, that is questions only.
Councillor Taylor's question.
Councillor Taylor, you were first.
Yeah. Am I allowed to ask Councillor Mather a question?
Sorry, Councillor Oliver.
No,
Sorry.
just him.
Just
Okay.
Councillor Oliver. Yeah.
All right then. Right. Well, I've got two questions then. So, first one is, what was the urgency to get this onto the meeting on the 11th, when you already knew the petition was there on the 7th?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'd just like to say the idea that the decision was taken because of a petition is completely the wrong way round. I believe, because one of the people in the room was contacted as soon as we'd received and considered and had internal discussions about the officers' reports and all of the different options, and people were told, including the Gormley Foundation. So that was done in advance of the meeting. And then the day after that was done, the petition started. So what has been presented is completely the opposite of what actually happened. But to answer your question about why it was done urgently, it was because Glenn, we'd set out, and this has been no secret since 2021, but we set out that, with the planning application to demolish the building, went in, Glenn agreed to pause everything while we took another look at it. And basically, the decision wasn't being made. In a sense, we were making a decision not to do something rather than a decision to actually do something, because the original plan was being adhered to. But Glenn had said to everybody, and he'd given the Hexham Town Councillors and Hexham County Councillors and the Gormley Foundation and all interested stakeholders, he'd given them his assurance that as soon as we had considered it, we would share that information. So in the week before the cabinet meeting, we had internal discussions, and Glenn said, I'd like to put it on the agenda because that's the first available opportunity we've got. At that meeting, we basically just reaffirmed that we were carrying on as originally planned. So there was no, that meeting was a public meeting. He phoned people in advance of that meeting. There was no sort of secret plot to try and hide it from the public or Hexham Town Council or anybody else. We were just trying to get the information out there as widely as possible and as quickly as possible.
Am I okay with my second question? The second question is really around the future use of the site. Councillor Mather said in his statement that the current site is a bit dilapidated and there's leaky roofs and everything else, and there's 127 staff that are using the current site. To use the new site that you're proposing, it's going to be demolished. What are you proposing to put on that site that's going to help those 127 staff?
Yeah, so at the moment there's on the existing site there's various things. There's parking areas for vehicles. There's offices. The porta cabins that the staff went into after Storm Desmond, by the way, are no longer there. And what we've got are modular buildings. I've been in those buildings. They're as good as any council office I've ever been in. So to say that the idea that we have the staff still in porta cabins 10 years after Storm Desmond is wholly inaccurate. They're actually in really comfortable, warm buildings. But what isn't working properly is the vehicle workshop. So all of the vans, the flatbeds that take the grass cutting equipment, the gritters, the bin lorries, all of the vehicles that provide the core basic services to residents up and down the valley are based on that site, and maintenance is done. But they also need to go off-site for MOTs as well. So we don't have an MOT testing station on that site, and there isn't the capacity for one, and the conditions aren't good enough. So every time a vehicle goes off-site for its MOT, it's off the road, it's not being used. If we had an MOT testing station on the site and we could bring an MOT tester in, which is part of the plan, then we would be able to keep our vehicles on the road for longer, we would get better utilisation and we would be more efficient. So the site itself will be a sort of reconfiguration. It's contiguous with the existing depot, and it'll be redesigned, and part of the existing land that the fire station on will house the vehicle workshop. We also have extra recycling requirements coming onto the council next year, which we've discussed this morning, in fact, at the budget meeting, and so there will be extra facilities. So it's not. I mean, one of the things I've also heard is that this is going to be a recycling centre. It's not, but it will host vehicles and maintain vehicles that are used as part of the widened recycling operations. So together, and then there's all sorts of other services on that site. So basically all of the local services and the neighbourhood services for the area are based down on Tyne Mills. Thank you.
Any more questions from the committee? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Nick, I haven't got a position either way on the fundamental question here. As I said the last time I spoke, it's about the procedure and that. But given the public interest and given the possible repercussions on the financial projections and the budget and whatnot, don't you agree it should go to scrutiny? And I have to say that you seem to make a perfectly reasonable argument for the decision you made. But unless it comes, I'm not going to make that decision based on 5 minutes getting that information before this meeting. It's got to come to a scrutiny committee. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Well, sort of. The first thing I'd point I'd make is it's at scrutiny now, because you are a scrutiny committee. And I was in front of your scrutiny committee last week. You're a pretty robust scrutiny committee. So I would say it is. But I would just go back to my earlier point about this is part of the original plan. In the 2021 budget that we all voted on, and I can't remember whether you voted for, against or abstained, the development of a expanded depot on this site was in that proposal. In this year's budget there was stuff in there as well. So it was a sort of, it was a peculiar set of circumstances in which the people of Hexham, or some of the people of Hexham, and some of the town councillors and some of the county councillors came forward and said we would rather this building was used by Sir Anthony Gormley than as a council depot. Glenn agreed to take a proper look at that. We commissioned, there's been an extraordinary amount of work done. There's been all sorts of calculations about GVA and visitor numbers, and but there's also been a look at the costs and the implications on the local services and neighbourhood services operations. So it's been properly considered. The financials have been considered. But in the context of our budgets, I think we kind of made a decision that we were just going to carry on as we'd originally planned, and we will continue to help Sir Anthony Gormley, and we're absolutely desperate to do that. Glenn has had discussions, as Richard mentioned. There was an agreed statement, but that was stopped. But two sides of the three had agreed to that statement, and it should have gone out last week, about a week ago, but it was paused. So I think we will continue. I mean, there may be another site. We've offered the Fellside building. I've been on a call myself and I've had explanation why the Fellside building isn't suitable. It's not between the existing two buildings. It's not close enough to the railway station. I would argue it's actually closer to the town centre, so as a visitor attraction for the whole of Hexham, and to support all of the other businesses in Hexham, I would argue it's a better site, and I would also argue it could actually be a really good anchor for a wider development of the old Hexham Middle School site, which will be a sort of multi-use development, including social housing. But we'll, obviously, the Gormley Foundation disagree with that, and it's their prerogative to disagree with that. But my primary responsibility as the Cabinet Member for Finance is to consider the sort of wider picture and the overall costs to the Council. So I hope that sort of answers your question.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Oliver. Councillor Dunn.
Can I just ask Councillor Oliver, the Gormley business case, how was that assessed? Who did that assessment?
It was so our officer team. It was independently assessed. We didn't see it. We didn't influence it. We basically let them get on with it, and then they brought it forward to us. So it was the Regen team. Regen team are very, very experienced in putting together cases. Some of the hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds that this council has brought in from the North East Combined Authority, from central government, and is all predicated largely on the work that team does, putting together cases for public finances. So they applied the same approaches. They took some of the normal metrics that are used and applied to look at the wider benefit. And there is no doubt that a fully public-facing, open all of the time sort of centre like the Tate in St Ives, or some of the museum in New York that Richard mentioned, would have a wider public, and there's no doubt that this would have a public benefit. I just don't think the public benefit is as wide as we've been talking. And in the discussions I've been involved in with the foundation, they've been in Hexham a long time, and it hasn't been a public-facing presence in Hexham. It's been a fantastic operational base. They've had access to some fantastic staff and so on. And but they, so the development of a public side has been quite recent, and we have to base these informations on the details we have, and that's exactly what we've done. We've taken the information we've been given. We've done a fair assessment. If anything, I'd argue it was a little bit optimistic, but we could argue about that. And then we've decided to progress with the original decision.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Any more questions from the committee? Councillor Kennedy, would you like to ask any question of the Cabinet Member?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that invite. So I will draw members of the committee's the pack that I've just sent out. I'll show and just talk about the maps. So at the back of your packs, you'll see maps. So you do, and I will ask the question to Councillor Nick Oliver, of course, but you'll see it in map number 1. This is the lot. So there's two sites. So this is how you have to picture this. There's two sites. There's the one where the site that we're talking about abuts the old fire station, and it's a smaller site. But 20 metres across the road is this larger site. And I've had a walk there with officers and toured it and had a look. I do have some experience of estates management. And if ever the word hodgepodge was to describe something, this large site is the hodgepodge. It is unoptimised, it is unclear, there's things here, there's vehicles parked here, there's old stores here.
Do you have a question, Councillor Kennedy?
So my question is, you can see on map 1 and on the other maps, on map 5, that's a car parking area which could easily be converted to operational. And we've also been approached by somebody who lives in a house which abuts this. So that's on map number 6, who would be willing to sell their property to.
Is there a question here?
There is a question here. So I think I think that whole site could be re-optimised. You would save on the demolition of the fire station. We don't know how much that will cost. There's been no costings in there. And you would receive a capital receipt from Anthony Gormley. So you get two figures there. You could purchase that house.
Question, Chair.
Yeah, I'll come into that, sir.
Well, if you
I'll
can
come to that.
come to the question quickly, because this
why-
sounds more
why
like a statement.
Why has there not been a plan to optimise the current larger site, which is an absolute hodgepodge of things, just plonked everywhere? You could tidy that up, and within the report that went to the County Council, to the Cabinet, there's no real idea of detail. There's a handful of figures in there. And you keep mentioning the West Road site. Nobody was talking about that. I think that's been used as a bit of a red herring. Nobody's interested in that site. That was the site that could be done. Put it all on one site. You know, you're talking about health and well-being, you're talking about moving and all this type of stuff. You could plonk it all on there. It needs creativity, it needs imagination to deliver a solution. Where, instead of having an us and them, it's
please,
or this,
can we have a question?
Councillor Kennedy,
we could have a third
can you just
option.
reiterate your question,
The
please?
question is why aren't we looking to optimise the larger site, which would give you the opportunity to have both an operational site that works for County Council and the Gormley Centre? That's the question.
Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Well, first of all, I would say we are. That's effectively what we're proposing, because we are, it may be a hodgepodge, but it's a hodgepodge that's evolved over years. And I would say I'm probably no better qualified than you are to design an operational site. But we have had an architect look at it. And the architect doesn't think there is the capacity to be able to do what we need to do on that site, even if you include the acquisition of the house. And incidentally, the council have approached the house owner. And okay, we can provide you with some evidence, but the council have approached the house owner in the past and have been told very firmly that the house isn't for sale. And then suddenly it's appeared for sale in the last couple of weeks. So we've asked an architect to look at it. An architect has done that, and my understanding of that is that it just won't work. So there are safety issues. We've got expanded capacity. We've got HGVs going in and out. They need to be able to get in and out safely. There are also access issues, I believe, for another potentially for another business that this would cause if we pursued the option you're considering. But the main reason is there just simply isn't enough space, and we have to keep the project. I mean, the project at the moment I think is looking at about 3.3 million, which is great because back in 2021 it was around 8 million. So they've reworked the whole thing and brought the costs down. But yes, that work has been done, and I'm afraid it's just not viable. And in terms of why don't we reorganise it, that's exactly what we're doing.
Okay. Thank you for your questions. Members, as a scrutiny committee, we've now heard the arguments from both sides. At this point, we now move to the usual debate part of the procedure. And in order to do that, we need a proposal. Would anyone like to make a proposal? Councillor Robinson.
Our proposal goes to scrutiny.
Councillor, we are at scrutiny.
I'm talking about the nuts and bolts of the decision, not this call-in is about those 5 items as part of the decision-making principles in the Constitution. It's not about the fire station at Hexham. It's about the way it's been done.
Right. That isn't one of the options available. The decision has been made by Cabinet. You've previously been circulated the options that are available as a proposal, and that's the options that are available to be put forward now for us to debate.
And wasn't one of them to take it to scrutiny?
No, full council.
No.
There are 3 options available to the committee under statute. Essentially, this is a call-in process is determined by statute. There are three things you can do. You can either confirm the decision, you can refer it back to Cabinet for Cabinet to reconsider, and whatever Cabinet then decides is final, or you can pass it on to Council. Council can debate it, but Council cannot decide it. They have to refer it back to to Cabinet, and Cabinet then, again, have a choice to make a final decision. Those are the three options.
Well, this is a crazy situation. This isn't going to satisfy anybody.
Councillor Bainan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Chair, I'd like to propose that this committee should not resolve to refer it back to Cabinet, the decision-making body, or reconsider, or even go to full council. The decision should be implemented as of today. I'll propose that, Chair.
Is there a seconder?
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones, seconded. So we have a proposal and proposed and seconded. Would anybody like to speak to debate this? Councillor Dunn.
Thank you. I would not support that proposal. I think the perception that this decision has been made in a way that is, well, that it hasn't been open, it can be deeply harmful to this council. And for that reason alone, I think it should go back to full council. So I will not support that proposal.
Okay. Councillor Austin.
Good afternoon.
Us and them. And I don't think we should have this division. I think we should discuss this in full council, put the thing to bed, and then make a proper decision with hopefully a more united council.
Councillor Jones, did you have your hand?
Thank you. To be honest, I would support Councillor Bainan's proposal. I don't really understand the reason for this call-in. I mean, I know we've heard it. We've got a highways depot in Hexham that needs expanding next door to an empty building which is owned by Northumberland County Council, and I'm also we've been told today is actually not for sale. But the Gormley Foundation, supported by Councillor Kennedy, would like the empty site for themselves, which would mean the highways extension would have to be in a different location on a different site, or relocate totally to a totally different site. It just doesn't make sense. I'm sorry, it just doesn't make sense. It's fine.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
I've got something else that doesn't make sense. But I won't be supporting the motion, John, because we heard the Deputy Leader say all the procedures have been followed. And yet we've got 5 reasons why this is a valid call-in. I'm not sure you understand what's happening here. This is about the procedures, and it's about not having proper scrutiny on decisions made by Cabinet. And when you've got one administration and the same members in Cabinet and the same chairs of major scrutiny committees, there's a problem. And this is exactly illustrates the problem. And it's not about the fire station. I've said it before. I don't know enough about it to make a decision. It's the way it's been done. It's been pushed through in haste, and I haven't had a reasonable explanation of why that happened. So I'm sorry, I can't support the Cabinet decision.
Councillor Dungay.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say I disagree with a lot of those points made. I support what Councillor Bainan has put forward. On the decision made, well, on this whole process, I am a fairly new councillor, as quite a few of us are on this committee, and I've heard lots about scrutiny and how scrutiny works, and it be debated in this council chamber over the last months. We are at scrutiny now. I'm really pleased this process has been able to happen. We've had this call in about this one decision the Cabinet's made about one building in Hexham. and we are all here this afternoon discussing this particular decision, scrutinising it very well. I'm quite sure the Cabinet will be listening. I think from what we've heard, this decision is not about some sort of rejection of art or culture for Hexham. It's about what is the best use for this building in Hexham, which is owned by the council. We've heard we need extra space for vehicle maintenance and testing. I'm not a Hexham councillor, so I had a drive over there at the weekend to have a quick look. I haven't been able to analyse the maps as well as I'm sure the Hexham councillors have, but I can clearly see it's right next to the existing maintenance centre. It makes sense, the proposal that's been made. It seems a very sensible decision to me. They've been listening to the points made by Sir Anthony Gormley, and it sounds like working with Mr Gormley, and it sounds as if he's still happy to work with the council, from what I can hear, to move forward with any other building. Value for money is one of the key priorities of this council, which I totally agree with. I'm sure we all agree with. And from what I can see, this decision gives the best value for money for the residents who need vehicles to service all their needs in the whole of the west of the county. And I feel for any council to work, a cabinet has to be able to make some decisions about particular buildings that the council owns. And we are scrutinising it today, but I would not want every single decision like this about one building to be going to a full council meeting or to every single scrutiny meeting. I'm really pleased we've had the debate today, but I do not think it needs to be referred back any further. So I support Councillor Bainen's proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dungate. Anybody else like to speak on this?
In which case you move to the vote on Councillor
Okay.
Bainen's motion.
In which case we'll move to the vote on Councillor Bainen's motion.
You may wish to explain. If that falls, then we need another motion.
Yeah. Just to provide some explanation, if this vote was to fall, then we do need another proposal, which we would have to vote on.
Chair,
So
do I get to sum up before the proposal?
By all means, Councillor Bainen, if you would like to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. Malcolm, I normally agree with you on probably 99% of things, but I think we've had a very good explanation from Councillor Oliver and Councillor Wearmouth, Councillor May there, over the history and how the decisions have been made, and I'm very clear on this. I believe the procedure has been correct and the Cabinet acted properly and the decision was proportionate and reasonable in all the circumstances, and we should stand unchallenged. We hear a lot about officer-led, but I've been heartened by Councillor Oliver saying that they've talked to officers at the depots to see if this could work. The officers on the ground are the experts, and I believe what the officers have told Councillor Oliver. So I think everything has been explained. I'm very happy with it, and that's why I proposed that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bainen. So we have a proposal in front of us, can now go to the vote. I remind members that the Chair does have a casting vote and can vote the way that he feels appropriate. So can I ask all those in favour of the motion to raise their hands, please? Okay.
That's easily counted.
Yep. Those against?
That falls.
Okay. So the proposal has failed. I'll now go back to the committee and ask, is there an alternative proposal? Councillor Taylor.
I would just propose that it goes to full council.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Dunn, yours was the first one. Okay. So in that case, we have an alternative proposal. Can we ask for those in favour of...
You can have a debate on that.
Yeah, do we have a debate on that then, please?
Does anyone wish to speak?
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. As I said, this is Hobson's choice, because even taking it back to full council, it's not going to do anything about the decision. It's going to publicise it a bit more, that's about it. But I'm in favour of that. And I listened to John and what he said at the last one, and it says on the papers, reasons for calling, and it's Article 13. principles of decision making in our constitution, it does not say Hexham Fire Station anywhere in the reasons for calling. So excuse me, but I'm just judging this on a matter of procedure. And I think there's 5 reasons why that procedure failed. And I agree with them.
Sorry to interject here, but just to be clear, those reasons for call-in are Councillor Kennedy's reasons for call-in. They were the ones put forward by him, and the reason the call-in was accepted was because, on prima facie, they were reasonable grounds. It doesn't mean the grounds themselves were made out. It was merely just a proposition that he put forward.
And does it not mean you agreed with them?
No.
No.
You would know about it if they didn't. You would know about it if they didn't.
I mean, this is just getting, this is fantasy. But I'll certainly agree to going to full council. At least they'll get an airing in public.
Councillor Dunn?
Yes, thank you. Like I said before, I think there is just the perception that this decision has not been made particularly openly. We need to take the residents of Hexham with us. Whatever the outcome at full council, I think the residents deserve to have it referred to there. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Dungate?
I think that for a decision like this, it's been researched for many months, a lot of correspondence back and forward between the Cabinet, as we've heard today. Do we really want any or every decision like this to go to full council? This council would never get anything done if every decision on a building goes to full council. So my opinion would be another proposal to refer to Cabinet, which is why on this proposal to go to full council, I'm afraid I would not support that, as I don't think it's a productive use of full council.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Bainan.
Chair, just clarification. We've been told by Councillor Oliver on the finance side, and that anything else wouldn't work. If this goes to full council and the proposal is defeated, who then takes responsibility for the financial implications?
Just to clarify the procedure, Council will not be making the decision. What will happen is Council will debate it, and the substance of that debate will then go back to Cabinet, and Cabinet will make the final decision in the light of that debate. So the final decision will be for Cabinet, and Cabinet will have to take it within the budget framework.
Chair, I kind of did know that. It's just, I think, to make clear to all other members of the committee.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. And just to clarify that, it wouldn't be a council decision. All that would happen it would go back to Cabinet because it's their decision in the first place. So to refer this to full council, council could not change the decision. All they could do is send it back to Cabinet with some comments, recommendations, etc. Do we have any more? Anybody else wish to speak? Okay then, so the proposal is to refer to full council, but members must note that the decision is an executive decision and ultimately can only be made by council. By Cabinet, I beg your pardon. So we go to a vote. Those in favour of the proposal? Those against?
That is carried.
So that motion is carried. The decision is that this is referred to full council. Members note that the decision is an executive decision and ultimately can only be made by Cabinet. Okay, we have no other items to consider. Thank you for your time, and I now close the meeting.